CEO of Axios, Jim VandeHei, and senior congressional reporter for Punchbowl News, Andrew Desiderio. Guys, good morning. Andrew, you're covering the Hill very closely. Is there any movement here? Is there any behind-the-scenes talk about ending this now that we're on the precipice of so many Americans not either getting the pay they need or the food assistance they rely on?
Well, the short answer is no. We're going to see Democratic senators led by the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer today raise issue over that SNAP cliff that you mentioned for November 1st. Their whole argument is that, look, the administration is moving around money to pay the troops, to pay members of the military. Why can't they move around money to fund the SNAP program? And what Republicans are saying back to Democrats is, why don't you vote to reopen the government? We're kind of in the same time loop that we've been in over the last 29 days or so here. And at the same time, Senate Republican leaders, they teased a strategy of maybe doing these quote unquote rifle shot one-off funding bills whereby you would fund the SNAP program during the shutdown. You would fund air traffic controller pay or military pay, for example. But they're backing off of that because the White House, number one, doesn't want it. And number two, the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, really doesn't want it because it would force him, of course, to bring the House back from its month-plus long recess before the government is reopened, which has, of course, been his red line throughout all of this.
You know, Jim VandeHei, what's so fascinating to me is that Donald Trump always seems to know how to frame the fight, right? And so before the government shut down, he was talking about crime. That's like the Packers playing at Lambeau Field. That's like Alabama playing in Tuscaloosa, you know, Denny Bryant Stadium. And I'm dead serious. That's his home field advantage. Since the government shut down, what have we been talking about? We've been talking about health care costs. We've been talking about how health care premiums are spiking for middle-class Americans, for his supporters, cuts to hospitals in red state America, Argentina bailouts. I mean, you name it, air traffic controllers, unfriendly skies. And the president's going on a world tour, and Republicans can't seem to get him focused on how this is damaging the Republican brand. I'm curious your take, and how long until, if these numbers keep going this way, the White House feels the pain?
There's no doubt that the president right now is disconnected from where I think his favorability numbers are. He said in that clip where you're talking about a third term that he's the most popular president ever. You've consistently seen he's actually has a favorable rating somewhere around 40%. And for congressional Republicans, it's worse than that. And the concern you have among Republicans is, listen, it's not just that people might not get their SNAP payments, which is a big deal. It's not just that you might have a little more risk or a little more delay at airports. It said on top of that, everyone's about to see a pretty big increase in their health care premiums. And the job market is looking really, really tight, really, really bleak, especially for college graduates. And so when you have those three things, you can look at polls and parse polls and say, who do you blame? Who do you not blame? Republicans control everything. So ultimately, they probably take the vast majority of the blame if these things unfold the way that we think that they'll unfold. And I think that is the concern. It's why you have Josh Hawley doing a op-ed in the New York Times talking about we've got to make sure we get these payments to poorer people. It's the reason you have Republicans now saying, hey, we probably do have to figure out some kind of compromise. And so I think it feels like you'll get to a deal soon, but I think the president is pretty disconnected from it. He's much more interested in cutting these deals overseas, trying to figure out a compromise on China. He sees that the stock market 3 days running has hit all-time highs, and so he feels like things are in the right trajectory. But I think there's a disconnect between what most people are feeling.
Well, and Willie, what we're hearing from him is like, hey, this is great. We can have Russ Vought cut more of the government, thinking that because his very small base, right, on X thinks that's a great idea, doesn't understand that a lot of people in middle America, a lot of people in red state America are getting hurt by those cuts. And maybe that's great for nerds and think tanks. They go, look what we are able to do with the government shutdown. We are strategically, right? They're totally disconnected. And that's how they talk, by the way. But they're strategically, this is a strategic disaster, and they're disconnected from the real politics of this, the real pain.
You're hearing some of those voices again yesterday. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican of Georgia, saying, what are we doing? What are we doing, Mike Johnson, taking health care away from people in my district and your district? Andrew, let's talk about how beef fits into all of this. There was the Senate luncheon yesterday. J.D. Vance, the vice president, stopped by to talk to senators there and kind of got an earful from a bunch of them about this idea of importing beef from Argentina and perhaps hurting those ranchers in America.
Yeah, I was told that inside the room, around 6 or 7 Republican senators confronted J.D. Vance about this issue quite directly. And at one point, he actually responded kind of in a joking manner, saying, does anybody have any questions not about beef? And I think it just underscores the fact that we've got this situation here where Republicans have chosen this issue that they feel comfortable pushing back on the administration on. I mean, it's kind of surprising when you consider all the other things that they've been willing to sort of excuse, sort of talk away in favor of the administration and of the president. But they're hearing directly from their constituents, from farmers, ranchers, especially we're talking about senators who represent these farm-heavy states, not afraid to speak out on this issue in particular. And I was told that a couple of senators even mentioned President Trump's Truth Social post on the issue, in which he has essentially tried to insult farmers and ranchers and insinuate that they didn't understand the realities of the situation. So Republican senators were quite flabbergasted, not only by that Truth Social post, but by the fact that the president and the administration don't seem to be listening to the concerns that they have, again, especially from these agriculture-heavy states that they represent.
And, Jim, again, there's that disconnect, whether you have Marjorie Taylor Greene going, hey, what are we doing here? Well, we're hurting our own people with these health care cuts. You've got Republicans that are actually, yesterday they passed a resolution in the Senate saying you got to end these tariffs against Brazil. You can't put a tariff on somebody and declare an emergency because you personally don't like what they're doing to an ex-president there. It's Josh Hawley writing op-ed saying, come on, let's get this moving. And then, of course, senators castigating J.D. Vance and really taking issue with the president insulting farmers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's still, it's rare when any of these Republicans really speak out against Trump himself, but there has to be frustration. Usually a president doesn't go overseas in the middle of a shutdown, right? Just the optics aren't great, and you want to be seen sort of trying to solve this problem, mainly because you ultimately hit this deadline where you run out of ways to pay for these vital programs for a lot of people. And when people get hit, that's when they pay attention to politics. Like, we all get obsessed about whatever's happening in the day. Most people have lives. They're not paying attention to this stuff until suddenly their beef prices are higher, or you're a cattleman and your industry suddenly feels much less lucrative, or you're having to pay a much higher health care premium, and that's a big chunk of your take-home income. Then you do start to pay attention, and then you do start to speak out in politics. And that's where Congress is a pretty good early indicator of what's happening in the district or back home, because they're hearing this. They wouldn't say something to J.D. Vance if they weren't actually getting a lot of pressure back home. They want to just love J.D. Vance and Trump and make sure that they love them back, right? But so when they do it, it means there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like my love for Comcast.
Oh, God.
Really, right?
Oh, yeah. But
Yeah.
unconditional.
What do I say? We get it. What we go to
Except when it doesn't work.
What I'm going to talk
And you
about.
get that
how great the
User
service
error,
is.
Mika. That was user
error is my
Really?
fault.
It's
my fault.
always
Yeah.
our fault.
Always.
Senior congressional reporter for Punchbowl News, Andrew Desiderio, thank you very much for coming on this